All right, everyone. I think we can get started. So, first of all, welcome and thank you very much for taking the time out from the busy tax season and joining in today. Today's webinar is all about we kind of officially introducing some new automations, which we call AI and accruals. Before we actually deep dive, just gonna quickly introduce myself. Many of you may already know me. I'm Hardik, one of the founder at Xenett. By profession, I'm also an accountant. It's been more than 5 years that we've been working on Xenett. And with me, I have my co-founder, Nick, on the call. So, Nick, if you can also introduce
Yeah,
yourself.
good afternoon, everyone. Myself, I'm Nick. I'm one of the co-founder at Xenett. Uh, yes. So yeah, it's been 5 years. I and Hardik has been together, and we started this journey 6 years back. So those who don't know about the background about the Xenett,
Perfect. All
yeah,
right. So, just a quick housekeeping items, guys. So we are recording this webinar. Let me just quickly make sure that it's being okay. So it's being recorded. So those of you who were not able to make it today will be sharing this recording. We'll be talking. This is like an agenda that we'll be talking about Zenit intro mainly. Those of you who are joining in for the very first time may not have some clue about what Zenit is, what it does. So we're just gonna spend a quick few minutes talking about Zenit's introduction. Then we talk about the recent launch about the accruals plus AI. We introduced quite a few automations, and then we talk about the pricing for that, and then obviously the Q&A part. Right now, as we are discussing this, if you guys have any questions in between, feel free to leave them in chat. I do have my colleagues on the call who will be answering your questions. Now, before we actually move forward real quick, I just quickly wanted to see how many of you are actually a Zenit customer already. So for that, I'm just going to quickly launch one quick poll. If you can please take a second and just answer that would be great. So it should now actually show up on your screen. So I just kind of launched it. So if you can please answer, would be great. All right, I do see quite a few responses. So I'm just gonna wait for 10 more seconds and we'll just gonna close that. All right, I think I'm just gonna close it now. So thank you very much, guys, for answering that. I'm gonna go back to my screen again and then gonna talk about these and an intro. So just give me a second. So, Nick, if you can please
yeah,
take
sure,
it from here and just explain people
yeah,
about Zenit, and then I'll kind of
yeah,
take it from there.
sure. So those of you, who don't know about the Xenett, so quick introduction of Xenett. So Xenett is basically an intelligent cleanup tool, and close tool that helps you to detect error automatically and also helps you to close your book very efficiently by managing all your project tasks and also managing the client queries through our client portal. So, when we started out, it was whole about how we can get the whole error points and detecting errors automatically from the accounting system. That's how we got started, and then eventually we more phased out into how we can manage the entire workflow, which means managing closing tasks uh, by different team members, and managing your entire workflow, which means having a 1099 client portal. So the idea was that how we can incorporate the entire workflow on our platform. So now as we move forward, what we realized that there were so many, there were a lot of parts of the closing task were already been automated through our platform. But we also got to know that there were certain areas that were still being handled manually outside our platform. So we thought that, why not, have all those areas also been automated, because there were also been tasks being done in the Excel, and people still have to do certain tasks offline while closing the books. So that's how we thought of introducing a module where all of these areas can be automated. So with that, I'm very excited to share that Xenett is now launching AI plus accruals module, wherein we would be bringing lot of automation around the reconciliation that happens to the outside our platform. So which covers these automations are more on the areas of prepaid automation, payroll accruals, missing entries, automated reconciliation for the clearing account, intercompany reconciliation. We are also coming up with a payroll clearing reconciliation and fixed asset management, which is something we are planning in the future. So with that, I would like to have Hardik, to take over from here, and he can give you a quick glimpse of all of this feature, how this would work in action. So Hardik.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So I think you said it very correctly, guys. So until now, Zenith was primarily focusing on finding more like on transactional errors, like you got duplicate entries or some transactions coded incorrectly. But we found out that people were still spending a lot of time outside in Excel or maybe in doing some sort of review like prepared or intercompany. There's a lot of work was happening outside. So we are now finally automating all these processes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take you to Zenith. And before showing you guys the actual, these features, I would like to spend a couple of quick minutes just for those people who are seeing Zenith for the very first time. I'm just going to quickly glance through and show you like what Zenith is doing right now. And then I'm going to talk about all these new automations. All right, so 1 second. All right, so this is what Zenith is mainly doing. Zenith has got two plans. One plan, which is AI financial review. That plan is designed for anyone who really wanted to close the books. I mean, if you have any existing practice management software that you're using it, but then if you require a robust month-end close automation solution, then we have designed this plan for you, where all we are trying to do is we kind of put together all these different issues like duplicate entries or some transactions are not coded correctly. So you can find all of these issues at one place and you can also fix it from here itself. The data that we are showing here is coming from the QuickBooks Online, but it can also be integrated with Xero as well. So this is the review points. And then we also have a financial review where we automatically review balance sheet and profit and loss. And right next to each account, we show the finding. Because otherwise, if you are reviewing this in your accounting software, you don't have that visibility. Like you don't know which account is right, which account is not right. So what we're trying to do here, we give you those findings next to the account so that you guys can know like where you want to deep dive. So that's also another feature. Now we also have a client portal. So during the close, during the review, if you come across any questions, whether those questions are related to the transactions that you're not sure, like uncategorized transactions, whether that question is about requesting some documents from your client, you can also manage all of those questions from here, right? So this is that AI financial review version, which is specifically designed just for the month-end close automation. And then we have another version, which is more like a practice suite that I would just say. So just give me a second real quick. All right. So this particular version that we have designed is for someone who really do not have a proper practice management solution in place, and then they really wanted to run their firm using Xenett. So this is where like a firm can create different sort of projects like onboarding projects or general tasks or monthly close, and then they can actually manage it here. So let me just show you. So here I'm in monthly close. You guys can actually create different sort of tasks, assign it to different people. It have a task statuses, all of those things that you can do it. We also have a files module where in case if you would like to store some documents, you can also store some documents here as well. Then we also have a way where you can create the financial reports and share with your client as well, right? So the idea behind this particular version is mainly for accounting firm who really wanted to manage all of their daily routine task inside Xenett. All right, so that's what Xenett is today so far. Now, I'm going to take you to, once again, a quick presentation just to show you real quick. Okay, this is what we're going to be talking about today. We have introduced quite a few automations in last few months. In fact, many of our customers have already been using that in beta as well, but we did not have an official launch, and this is the official launch where we are taking it to the public, where we are displaying how all of this automation work. So I'm going to talk about that. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the prepaid expense automation first, and then going to go through one by one. Now, typically, what happens, guys, is that with the prepaid expenses, I mean, if you look at the broader level process, you first of all identify which are the prepaid expenses. Then you have to figure out like making all of those expense recognition entries. Then you have to also maintain some sort of schedule outside. And then there is always a pain point that you might be going through where your schedule balance, GL balance are not matching. So we are actually automating the entire process, and it's very, very straightforward. The way it's going to work is whenever a transaction is recorded inside QuickBooks, so let's just say if I'm entering a bill or expense or check, whatever it is, all I have to make sure is like I just have to mention the appropriate memo. So I'm gonna say like, hey, this is the Microsoft vendor. I'm paying them for subscription. This is what the period is. What Xenett is doing, it is gonna read that description. It is gonna look for the amount that you set up because there's a threshold limit that you can set up. So you could say, hey, anything more than $2,000, you want to do you want to consider it as a prepaid expense. So that is how Xenett treats that. That is all needs to happen. That's it. Like once it's done, what Xenett is doing behind the scene is that it's gonna automatically. Let me actually quickly take you to prepared review. So this is like one of the review point. Okay, what it is doing behind the scene, it first of all creates a schedule based on the memo that you have created. It would then also recognize all these entries, and then it will also match the balance as per schedule and with the GL balance. So technically, you did not have to do anything as such. All you had to make sure was that you just put that appropriate memo, you just hit the save, and that's it. Like Xenett will then take care of the rest. All right. That's like what the primarily, I mean, what this automation does. Now, there are some more features with that as well. Like in case if you guys would like to create some custom mapping. So let's just say if you have by default, what happens is Xenett will automatically put all these different expenses into one prepaid account. But then if you have a separate prepaid account for different types of expenses, like let's just say you have a prepaid insurance or prepaid software subscription, you can also create a mapping here, and accordingly it will make these entries. Okay, and this is the threshold limit that I was talking to you. Whatever amount that you define here, based on that, like anything below that amount, Xenett will not consider it as a prepaid. Anything above that, it will consider as a for the prepaid. All right. So that is like the prepaid prepaid expense automation that we have introduced. All right. Now I'm going to talk about the another automation, somewhat similar that we have introduced, which is the payroll accrual automation. Now let me actually pull that up. With the payroll accruals, I mean, as you guys know that at times like your payroll falls on two different months. Like some days on, let's just say this month, and a few days on the next month. And in that case, you often have to make the accruals for that. And Xenett automates that. All it does, same way, like all you have to make sure is in your payroll entry, as long as you put the period, like from this date to this date, Xenett will automatically identify the number of days belong to this month and the future month, and it will make the accrual. So this is an example. There was a payroll for 14 days, and this was the original period. Okay. And right now we are working on July month's closing. So what it is doing right now is that it has identified that there were 12 days for July and the remaining days for August. That is how it took the amount. It then calculated the proportionate amount based on the number of days which are there, and it automatically created the accrual entry. And not just the accrual entry, it also reversed it out as well in the next month. So technically, you did not have to do anything else. It created a schedule. It also matched with your GL balance. And now you see that the difference is zero. So similar to prepared, all you have to make sure is in your QuickBooks payroll journal entry, you just have to mention that memo, and then it will take care of that. Okay. Now, recently, I mean, some of our customers have already started using it, and we started getting some additional requests because what happens is like you guys may be using some third-party payroll like Gusto or WagePoint or ADP and so on and so forth, right? Now, when the entries are synced from those specific payroll software to your QuickBooks file, it already has a certain format, like how the period is mentioned. So now what we have also done is that we have also added those memo styles into our configuration. What that would do is that you would then do not have to worry about like writing the memo in specific way. Like basically the moment that Gusto entry or for that reason any other payroll provider entry syncs into your QuickBooks file, Xenett knows how to read that memo. Based on that, it will then create the accrual, it will then create the reversal as well, right? So as our customers and as our users are using it, and as we get more feedback, we are also evolving that. So that's how the payroll accrual is done. Okay, so I'm gonna take a quick pause. Just gonna look at the chat. So guys, I mean, as I'm explaining, and if you also come across any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. Yes, Liz, it does it right now. I mean, I'm talking about the questions that you asked. Can you exclude weekends? It does not do it right now, but yes, we can. I mean, we can introduce a config and it can do that. So yeah, this kind of feedback that we require from our customers, and then we can certainly make it possible. So we can introduce some sort of configuration, and then like that's totally possible. Okay. All right. So that's that. All right. Now I'm gonna talk about the intercompany automations. Okay, this is like a pretty cool one because I do remember my days like the intercompany reconciliation itself is a very time consuming and very tedious process. The main reason is like you are juggling between the ledgers from the different companies, and then you never know when the balances are off. So I think this is really pretty cool, and I personally like it. Many of our customers have helped us building this feature, so thank you for that. Let me talk about that. So what Xenett is doing here is that let's just say there are two companies that you've connected in Xenett, and they are interconnected. You're setting up the relationship. You're kind of choosing the account, like, hey, from this company, this is my intercompany account. From this company, this is my intercompany account. So basically, you are just setting up that relationship inside Xenett. Once you do that, that's it. Xenett automatically pulls the ledger balance. So in this case, I got two companies, demo company and then the test company. In demo company, I have a ledger, which is a due from test company. And in test company, I have a due from ledger. It is actually pulling the ledger balance from both the companies. Like this is $98,000 here, and this is $100,000 here. From both these balances, the total difference is $2,100. Now, what Xenett further does, it summarizes your difference by monthly activities. So now you know that. So what we're doing here is like we're taking the data for last 12 months, and we just create a summarize like activities. Like for January, this was the amount. Here, this was the amount, and like we calculate the difference. Now in these 2 months, there are differences, but it's getting offset. So maybe there's a timing difference. But as you can see, that $2,100 difference is actually coming from July month. So we are actually creating some more filters so you exactly know where you need to dip dive. You don't even have to worry about any of these months which are already right. Because manually, if I had to do it, and if like imagine if I had that $2,100 difference that I needed to find out from the Excel, I would not know from which month, from which transactions that difference is coming from. I would then have to do a lot of lookup formula to find those transactions, right? So that is very, very tedious exercise. At least here, Xenett has now straightforward telling you like, hey, that difference is coming from July. Now, when you click on that difference, you then further see, okay, what are those transactions which could be possibly causing that difference, right? So July month actually had a lot of transactions, but what Xenett has done behind the scene, it has already matched the transactions which are kind of matching, right? So you don't have to look at those transactions which are already fine, which are already matching against each other. So you only have to look at the transactions which are kind of not matching. So in this case, like, hey, this $10,000 and then this 5,200, this 1,400, like these are like offsetting against each other. You can also manually match. So while Xenett does the automatic matching for you, but for the remaining ones, if you are able to match it, then you can also manually match. So now you know, like, hey, that $2,100 difference is coming from this particular transaction. So this is where the Xenett role ends, right? Because at this point, we may not know like whether this transaction is right, wrong, whether this transaction actually belong here or is yet to be entered, right? So at this point, all we are trying to do is helping you find the transactions which are causing the difference. And then after that, you can take the appropriate action to fix that. And as you, let's just say, if this transaction was not right and you can delete it and then you can just refresh it and that way your intercompany would be automatically matching. Other way around, like if that transaction was missing here, you can go back and record that transaction in your accounting software, simply refresh it, and your intercompany balance would also match it here, right? So this is how we automate the intercompany balances here, right? The other good thing is that whenever you are then reviewing your balance sheet, right? So example here, this is my intercompany account, right? If it's matching, you would get to know like, hey, there's a green flag, it's matching. So that means you don't even have to worry about that, right? But if it is not matching for whatever reason, someone deleted something or someone changed something, the real time basis, it would just give you a red flag that hey, something is off. And when you click on it, it will then further tell you this, I mean, further show you the same script, right? So this is how the intercompany automation largely works. All right. Now I'm going to talk about the uh, automation that we have done it for the merchant accounts. So let me actually pull that up.
Hardik,
This
before that we have few questions regarding intercompany. So if you can address that as well.
yes, Mark. I think Ritik has already answered that. Can Xenett reconcile AP and AR? Not yet, Julie. I think that's also another thing that we plan to get into. We're trying to figure out some use cases. So I'll be happy to get your feedback because we've been doing some brainstorming around how to handle that AR and AP situation. But that is definitely on our roadmap for sure. Okay. And Mark, I think he already answered. So yes, it can handle. So the way it's gonna work is if I go back into company review, you can add like as many relationship as you want. The only condition is that those QuickBooks file needs to be added to Xenett, right? Once it's added, you can add as many relationships just like that. Okay. So that's that. All right. Looks like you've covered all the questions. Perfect. So that's that. Now, let me talk about the another automation that we have introduced. This is also like a another situation where I mean things get lost and it's very complex process. I'm talking about the merchant clearing. Okay, I have seen, especially with the clients like a retail industry or wherever you are accepting payments to credit cards, and there's a merchant involved, and you get a bigger deposits, right? Finding out the exact breakdown of the balance is very, very time consuming, right? It's more like an undeposited funds. I mean, the QuickBooks undeposited funds, but that happens the same thing with the merchant. Like in this case, I'm looking at my balance sheet and I have this balance of about of $21,000 here. Now, obviously, when you click on the ledger, it's not helpful by any means because all you would generally look at are the transactions, right? It would not then give you what exactly is making up the balance. And that is what we are simplifying it here. So with the merchant clearing automation, let me just pull that really quick. What we are doing here, we kind of break it down your balances into three different categories. One, okay, how many payments? So right now, this is the balance as of 7/31st, okay? And this is how we have allocated it. First of all, we are finding out, okay, how many are payments, how many payments are actually getting deposited in the next month, next period. So when you click on it, so you know that, hey, there was this payment which is actually getting deposited in August month. So obviously this $21,000 contributes to this ending balance. Okay. In ideal case, in a perfect world, I would expect that these payments, I mean, my ending balance should only consist of these payments, which ideally should be clearing next period. But it's things are not always simple. We always get a lot of such issues. So in this case, I know that okay, this $21,000 is contributing to this. However, there are still some differences. Okay, and this is what we are further highlighting it. Like okay, what we're doing here, like we actually take the data for entire 12 months. Behind the scene, Xenett would automatically match all of your payments, which is like if you visualize your merchant clearing account, you have your payments recorded on debit side and your bank deposits recorded on credit side. Xenett would automatically match all of those transactions and then will only give you those transactions where it did not find the corresponding match. Okay. So in this case, you see that, okay, there was $100 difference and it is actually coming from this particular transaction. So there is no need for you guys to ever export anything into Excel. And again, doing any sort of lookup formulas, right? Zenit will actually simplify it for you. And as you guys know that, see, because it's a balance sheet account, that difference could be coming from any month. Like, even though I'm working on July close, it's not necessary that that difference is coming from July only. It could be coming from April or March or even before that. So what we are doing, we're taking the data of 12 months, not before that. And then out of those 12 months, we will identify that if there are any transactions which are not matching, then we will display it here. And if there are any opening difference before that, like before 12 months, we don't do anything yet, but we just simply show it here, right? But at least you know, like from the last 12 months, you know that what are those transactions, okay? So this is like account that we have added. And behind the scene that I was talking to you, like Zenit was matching those payments and deposits. This is where you can see. See, if you look at the whole list, right, there are probably thousands of transactions that Zenit has already matched it for you. So you did not even have to spend any second verifying them or writing any sort of complex formulas. You don't even have to deal with them at all, right? So that is how it's more like an undeployed fund. I mean, we also have a review point for undeployed fund, but that is useful only when if you are using QuickBooks undeployed funds feature, right? But this particular one that we have designed is mainly for if you are using any third-party merchant, then this is very, very helpful. Okay. So any if let me just actually quickly check the chat. Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay. What if there are missing transaction lines, duplicates? Will it flag those? Yes, Mark. So if there are any duplicate lines, it will be flagged because it would not find the corresponding match and it will be flagged that way. So yes. Um, it's only QuickBooks Online. So Mega, to your question, it's QuickBooks Online and Xero. All right. Now, I mean, as you guys know that the merchant clearing is just one example. But then you may have a different sort of clearing account as well. Like one of the most common clearing account that you may also have is like on a balance sheet side, sometimes you create payroll clearing account or even for that reason, payroll liability. Even though it is not like a literally like a payroll clear, like it's not like a clearing account as such, but the kind of transactions that you generally have in payroll liability, especially if you're dealing with some payroll agencies where you have your payroll liabilities recorded first, and then you have your bank payments recorded next. And there's usually like a timing difference, like maybe 2 days or 5 days. So what is going to happen in this? You can also add all the different kinds of clearing account. You just, so what Xenett is going to do is that once you add the account, let's just say you add that payroll liability account, behind the scenes, Xenett will understand the trend, and it will identify like how often what is the difference between the liability and the payment. Based on that, it will do its own config, and just like this, it will exactly tell you what are those transactions that are contributing to your liability balance, right? Now this particular part is in process and will be rolled out in, I think, in a few weeks from now. But merchant clearing was just one of the example, but I wanted to make a point that it will be applied to all the different set of clearing account. Okay. Basically, anywhere there is a specific pattern, then you can actually add it here, right? Okay. So that's that. Now I'm going to talk about the another automation that we have recently introduced, which is recurring entries and its automation. So that review points, we call it like an entries checklist. Okay. So let me talk more about that. So with the entries checklist, guys, what usually happens, say each business has some recurring transactions, right? And so example, like this company generally pays to Slack every month, or generally pay to Canva every month, or Microsoft every month. So you may have quite a few transactions that we generally expect every month, or not just every month, but maybe it's like a specific frequency. Some could be every quarter, some could be once in a year. What Xenett is doing is that it is going to read your entire general ledger. It's going to find some trend. Based on that, it would create this sort of configuration here. And here, it would exactly tell you whether you got that entry here in this month or not, right? So example, Slack, I expect one payment to Slack every month. So you can see like there's a one entry. Uh, this is what it was expected. This is what we got. And this is what it is matching, right? So I don't have to worry about that. However, I do have quite a few transactions where the entries are missing actually, right? I was expecting entry, but it's not there. Now, there could be multiple reasons, but at least first of all, you want to know like what are those entries. In previous, I mean, in my days, like we used to create a separate Excel file outside where we would have to manually identify all these vendors and then keep track of all of those entries manually. The most time consuming part was that you never know when these entries will arrive, because some transactions would be coming on first day of the month, some transactions could be coming, or some entries could be coming on 10th day of the month, right? So it's like the question was how often you go and look for those entries and update your schedule, right? So that was obviously one of the time consuming process. The second thing was that like you always constantly have to then find out like, okay, you were missing the entries, and then here, let's just say your client sent you a bill and it is now showing up. So it's like there's a lot of manual work involved between your accounting software and your Excel file. Okay. And that is what we are trying to automate here. Anytime you come here, you would always see this updated because it's pulling the data from QuickBooks and Xero. And you would know like, okay, at any point of time, what are those entries that you're still missing? And based on that, what we further help you is to help you create the accrual right from here. So in case if you're missing any of these entries, and if you wanted to then create accrual, you can just do it with just one click. All you simply do, click on create accrual. That will automatically keep all of this information ready for you. So you can see like, okay, this is dues and subscription, accrued expenses. It even assigned the name of the vendor. It also figured out the amount based on the last transaction. And if you then wanted to kind of create a reversal entry, you can do that. Simply click on save, and the entries, all these entries will be done automatically. Okay. So that way we kind of just make the whole accrual process a lot smoother. Okay. Now there are a few features here that you guys can actually use it, which are also very, very helpful. So, I mean, while Xenett automatically identifies this recurring entries for you, but in case if you wanted to add something by your own, you can also do that. So like you could say, hey, every month I expect that there should be an entry in my depreciation account. So you could just select literally any account. Here you can like you have full flexibility. You could say every month, or if it's a quarterly, you could even say like, hey, it's like January, June, September, and December. So you can also decide it that way. Now there may be certain annual payments as well that you expect every year. Even in that case, you could just specify a particular month, like, hey, every month or every year in December, I'm paying this insurance amount. So you can even so that way it's very, very flexible. Here you just define how many entries are you expecting, and then further, I mean, these are like additional filters if you would like. So uh, if you wanted to further tell Janet, like, hey, while I'm expecting an entry in accumulated depreciation, but it needs to be a journal entry, right? Or it needs to be a bill or whatever that transaction is, right? So you can further specify what transaction, what exact transaction that you are expecting. Further, you can also specify like, hey, I expect journal entry in accumulated depreciation, but I want it for admin. So it's like you can also add some more filters. You can add those config manually here as well. Okay. So that's what it mainly does. And additionally, what we have also done is kind of given you guys a quick tabs. So in case if you wanted to quickly see what was the thing with May, you can just switch it from here. You don't have to switch the close and go back to your May month and look at this information. But while you are here, in case if you wanted to quickly see whether you had that entry in May or any specific month, you can also do that. Like by default, we give total 6 months here, right? So like up to 6 months, you can go back and you can check. Okay. So that's that. And one more thing we have it here is like a trend where what we're doing here is we're just giving you guys a summarized version of entire general ledger by vendor. This is mainly for you guys to quickly see like, okay, you if you are like Tel Telephone, okay, this particular vendor is not added to your checklist, like your configuration, but you look at this, you identify that you kind of paying this vendor on regular basis. You can also add that configuration manually from here as well. So the purpose of giving you guys this screen is mainly to, I mean, you can quickly scan through, see what are those vendors which are not there, and you can quickly add them. Okay. So that's that. So these were the major automation guys that we have introduced. There are a couple of them in the pipeline, which I also would like to quickly talk about. One of them is defer revenue. So it's more like a prepared, but it's for the revenue. Okay. So especially, I mean, you guys maybe, especially that happens with us in Xenett, where we're collecting revenue in advance for the future months. So whenever we are creating an invoice, same way, you just have to type in the memo